Hi there. We're going to talk about math classes today. My name is Annalise Jones, and I run a business called Lucia Learning, which is mostly online classes for homeschool, older kids, and teens. And so I'm making a series of videos explaining how my classes work and what to expect in my classes so that you can have a good idea before you sign up. So this is math. So let's start this. All right. Let me explain math a little bit. Okay, my background is in psychology and English. So I teach things that are related to psychology, like leadership, personal development, and then classic psychology. I teach language arts, English stuff. And then math was also a subject I really enjoyed in school. I didn't enjoy it so much when I got to trigonometry. So I don't do the high school math. I teach math grades 4 to 8, but I have found a bit of a niche working with remedial teens, people who don't get math, they're not good at math, they don't love math, they're probably a couple years behind because they don't love math, and the moms, I mean, it fell to the bottom of the priority list. So I gained a bit of reputation around our community working with people who want special help with math and getting some students who haven't been doing it to come to a regular group, get some homework, have some accountability, and to come back. So I found a bit of a niche there, and I'm really enjoying that. And I just love the students, helping them develop confidence. That's part of my psychology brain. But I also, of course, teach regular math for people who just want to do math live with people instead of independently. But it's not my main gig, so I don't offer every level all the time. It's kind of just based on requests. So that's some background about me and my math classes. Okay, so in all my classes, I try to balance academics with friendship and support, right? I do try to hold integrity in my classes where if you signed up to learn a certain subject matter for a certain level, like you're going to learn it over the course of the year. I don't water anything down. We work hard. I have high expectations. But at the same time, I'm really flexible and I'm really supportive with the students. Flexible meaning I might not be committed to follow an exact course outline planned out in advance for the future weeks. I see how things are going and I play off of how my students are responding to it, what questions they have, if we need to mix up the style of the class, the accountability or the expectations, the level of work. I try to accommodate parents' requests and please them. I just try to support the families and the families' needs. So they are always free to give me requests and express concerns, and then I'll adapt my classes trying to meet that. Math especially is an important time to have flexibility because there's so many different skills in math and some of them build on each other and some of them don't. Some of them you cycle back around to naturally, some of them you don't. And when it becomes apparent that there's something that, like let's say we're in 7th grade math and there's a 5th grade skill that comes up and we forgot how to do it, or maybe we never learned that, then I stop, we take a detour, and we cover the 5th grade skill, right? And so if I was committed to a certain class outline, I wouldn't be able to do that. And I don't feel like it would be as supportive to the students. It would be more like, well, here I am, I'm going to do what I'm going to do, and you're welcome to listen in, almost like they're a third party. My classes aren't like that. My classes, the students come first, and then the material comes second. So the material is always subject to how the students are doing with it. And I don't expect anyone to meet me where I am. My job is to meet them where they are. And that goes for all my classes. I'm just really passionate about supporting the student as a person rather than trying to fit them as a peg into this hole, the called school, right? Like we homeschool for a reason. We don't want to fit our peg kids into holes that don't quite fit them, right? We need to adapt the pegboard so that they can fit in without having to shave them down, right? So I feel really passionate about that. Okay, so in general, here's my class makeup. This is what my classes look like. I'll hold a class for 4 students or maybe even less if one of my own kids is in it, because if I'm going to be doing it anyway with one of my own kids, I just take whatever I can get. 8 students is about my max, especially for math. I do really like to hear, did everyone understand that? Do I need to go over it again? Right? It's very interactive and I just can't do it for a large group. They are grouped according to their skill level, not age. So you're not going to hear me say, hey, all 11-year-olds, you're in 5th grade or 6th grade, and come and take this class. It really doesn't matter how old they are. So in my classes, you might see 10-year-olds and 16-year-olds in the same class. And that's the way homeschool goes, right? You might see siblings in the same class because they're pretty close to the same level and it's convenient for the parent to have them in the same class. So there might be like someone who's stronger and someone who's weaker, but they're here in the same class and we do our best to meet everyone's needs and kind of meet them in the middle. If someone is dramatically weaker compared to the rest of the group, I can't. I can't ignore everyone else's needs to meet the weakest. So I would recommend that they change to a different class. But in general, we try to meet everyone's needs. And sometimes that's even giving the more advanced kids separate work and telling them go ahead with this and then get back to me if you have questions. So sometimes I can juggle multiple levels at the same time, but not drastically different levels, right? So maybe just a strong 5th grade level versus a weak or 5th grade level. So yeah, I just try to roll with it as well as I can. Everyone, we use workbooks. I'm not a fan of textbooks, actually, and this might be surprising. I know homeschool moms are so big about talking about curriculum and what are you using? And again, with curriculum, it's more like you're trying to take that kid and plug them into the pegboard of curriculum. I don't find it as flexible. I mean, in curriculum, you can only go forward. You can't kind of jump around. In workbooks, you can jump around a bit more. So what I have settled on, my favorite workbooks, I have these 3 brands. Well, I'm going to show you on the slide, actually, so just give me a minute on that. But everyone will order their own workbooks on Amazon. It's also a lot cheaper that way. They only need 1 book. I mean, there's a couple of different workbooks, but it's not like they need the answer key and then the book, and they don't cost $40 each like a textbook. They cost like $8 on Amazon. Super easy. They can order them and get them in a couple days and be ready to go. I'm just all about practical and low key. Okay, so here's kind of the balance of what we do in class and how that goes into out of class work. Every class I want to cover several skills, like the math class I taught today, we went over 4 different things. Sometimes it's a review. Some of them might be new skills. I mean, no more than 2 new skills at the same time. And then sometimes the new skills, if I can tell that you're not quite getting it, I don't assign homework on that. We come back to it. And so it might be covered multiple times while they're doing homework on the other skills. But as far as the new skills, let's get our feet wet. Let's be exposed to it a bit more. Once they're feeling confident, then I give them homework on it. So I kind of developed my own like 1, 2, 3 step method. And what that means is the first step, let me show you right here. If you can see my little picture, the first step is I'm going to demonstrate a problem. We're going to do it together on the board, and I'm going to explain what we're doing. The second step is I'm going to put the problem up on the board and give them a 1-minute head start. And then I'm going to quietly do the problem on the board. That way they can be working out on their own and seeing what they can do on their own, but then they can look up and see what I have on the board and see if their work matches my work, right? And then the third step is the problem is on the board. I leave it there until everybody has an answer. And then they tell me their answers in the chat box privately if need be. And then I say, okay, you guys didn't quite understand it. Let's go over it again together, right? Or it'd be like, good job, you got it. Let's move on. Okay, so my 1, 2, 3 step method is it's a way to wean them onto being able to work independently. And again, I want to do it in a weaning approach just to protect that confidence, protect their security, just to know that they're not going to be required to do it on their own until I can see that they're getting it, right? Like everyone hates math because they have to do it on their own when they didn't understand it. And how do they ask a question when there's 20 or 30 kids in a class and the teacher's moving on, following a curriculum in a textbook that they're bound to without any awareness of how the students are even doing? So I'm a little revolutionary, right? I'm different, and maybe it works for some people. It doesn't work maybe for more structured parents who want that super structured approach. But I take people who don't enjoy math and I get them confident, and no one's ever quit my classes saying, I still hate math, so I quit. I've heard a lot of feedback from parents saying I got their kid to do math and now they're willing and they're much more engaged with it and positive about it. Okay, so if we're using the workbook and there's a page in the workbook that covers a certain skill, in class, I'm scanning the page looking for the more difficult problems within that skill. And then we will do those ones in class. making sure that they understand the difficult problem, and then they can do the easier problems for homework. Again, I'm setting them up for success. I'm really trying to avoid the situation where I cover the easy examples in class and then I turn them loose and they have to come face to face with some really difficult things where they're like, okay, I don't really know how to do it when it's like this, or when the numbers are this big, or when there's this extra twist on it, making it complicated. Uh, with no surprises. We don't want to give them any surprises for homework. And if they do, if I didn't preview it well enough and they do come across a surprise for homework that seems more difficult or not what they expected, then they skip it and they come back to class and say, this one was hard. Can we do this one together? So the homework is even flexible. If they're having trouble with the homework, bring it back to class and then we'll take a closer look at it together. Or by the way, I also have office hours on Saturdays. They're free to make an appointment with me and find a time on Saturdays where we can get together for a half hour and then give them some extra help. And then spontaneous trails, rabbit trails. If it's a parent, they need a review on something, we stop what we're doing, we cover that real fast, and then we come back to what we were doing. When we're doing a skill that has several like prerequisite skills, and if it becomes apparent that those prerequisite skills are not strong, then we need to bench that main skill for a minute and make sure they understand the prerequisite skills and then come back to it. And again, you never know when that's going to happen. You have to be flexible. Sometimes you're surprised. You're like, oh, okay, you forgot this again. So we're going to talk about it again. And that happens all the time, actually. Okay, my in-person classes. Now there's a bit of a distinction in how they run in-person versus online classes. I do in-person classes upon request when someone can host. They'll invite a few friends, I'll advertise and bring in a few more people. So someone's hosting. And then we do it around the kitchen table or on couches with clipboards. I've done both of those ways. I prefer the kitchen table because that way I'm able to walk around and circle the table and then look over everyone's shoulders. And I can see more clearly. Like with clipboards, it's pointed upward more, so it's kind of pointed away from me. But if it's all sitting out at the table, I can easily glance around and see if they're on the top of the page, the middle or the bottom of the page, or how quickly they're getting through it. Like I can quickly gauge who understands this and who's struggling just by watching their pencils move. And so then I circle the table and I check and answer and I say, okay, you might want to double check that one. Or just a little tip, or say, okay, you need some help, you have any questions? And so I like to get them on part of class is me lecturing with the whiteboard, and part of class is them doing the work and I'm circling the table, looking over their shoulders, making sure they understand and seeing if anyone needs help. Also, my in-person classes, I like to do 90-minute classes, and we cover 60, 70 minutes of work, and then we do games. And the reason we do games is, well, first of all, it develops logical thinking, which is going to strengthen their brain and help them with math. Secondly, it's developing friendships. It's helping them be excited to come to class so that they can have fun with each other. And thirdly, with some games, it's showing them a practical application for how math and how logic comes in handy in real life. And I never hesitate to get on my soapbox and preach them and tell them logic puzzles are how your brain gets strong. It'll help math make sense to you. It'll help you think throughout life. There's a problem in our society with people not being able to think critically, not being able to be logical, and we got to do some logic puzzles to do that. So I'm a really big fan of math games and logic puzzles. In my own homeschooling journey, especially my first 2 or 3 kids, they didn't do a whole lot of math until they were maybe like 8 or 9. They mostly played games. And they got that foundation of logical thinking down and strategy down so well that when it was time to now break out their worksheets and do some schoolwork, they caught on so quickly. And homeschooling my kids most of the time has been a breeze. Like none of them have ever been like super stuck understanding something. A couple of my kids, it was harder to teach them to read when they're like 5 years old, but once they're a bit older and they have those logical thinking skills down, and they pick up on things really quickly. And just the world makes more sense. Learning is a logical pattern. You know, like in order to understand science, there's pieces that fit in logically, and then the math comes into play, and the world makes sense because you know how to think. So it's so important to get your kids playing. Now, when I say games, I'm talking about board games that use thinking, strategy, or some sort of logic or math skills. And my games I play in my classes, I need to be more specific. Those are actually math games, right? I'm not talking about like we don't just pull out chess, right? Like we are playing, I have a few different card games, and then my students love playing Place and Digit on the board, where it kind of like a Sudoku puzzle where you're using a logical approach to guess a number. So they are more related to numbers and math. So that's my in-person classes. And then the online classes, I like online. It's more convenient for all of us. When I have hosts hosting, people are like, well, I got to think about how that fits in my schedule and the commute time, and that's 30 minutes across town, and then 30 minutes for me, and I'm bouncing around from one host to the next, trying to set this up with driving time in between. When I teach online, I can just teach a 9 o'clock class, a 10 o'clock class, an 11 o'clock class. It makes it really smooth and easy. And a lot of times I've had people say, oh, we need in person, online doesn't work for us. And then I say, can you give it a shot, please? So I get them to come try online, and guess what? It works because my online classes are the same as my in-person classes with some small differences. I still have my whiteboard. I'm still giving them a problem. I'm still taking questions. It's really the same thing. It's very interactive. It's not like they're bored just passively watching a screen, right? It's not passive at all. They can ask questions. They can interrupt me and ask questions in the middle of a demonstration. It's just very low key, very friendly and safe and interactive. So that has happened multiple times where people tell me that their kids can't do online classes, and then I get them to try it, and it works great. So I would love to encourage you to try it. If for any reason it doesn't end up working great, I always give refunds if you change your mind, or if my classes aren't working out for you after all. Okay, another advantage to online classes is I can record them. So if someone was late coming home from a doctor's appointment, we just record and then they can watch it later that day. Or, if they're sick or for whatever reason. That is, again, super convenient. I will either do my whiteboard on the screen, or I share my screen. So sometimes I have an online file or a digital photo, and then we share the screen and we use the annotate button to mark it up. And I let them use their annotate buttons and mark it up. We kind of get some fun interactive like that, marking up the screen together. So that's kind of fun. Again, the 1, 2, 3 method. I don't think I need to go over that again. I talked about how I give them problems, and I kind of give them a few minutes head start, and then I do my own work on the board, so where they can see all the steps, and as they're working, they can glance up and just check their work against mine and make sure it's all checking out. And then the next step is I give it to them, and then I require them to tell me their answer over the chat before I tell them what the right answer is. So the downside of online classes is if we're working and I say, any questions? How are you guys doing? Do you get it? Does that make sense? I need them to answer the questions. I need them to speak up and tell me if they're getting it or not, right? And that's usually why I have them tell me their answers in the chat box, because then I have 2 pieces of information. I know how long it took them to get to their answer, and then I know if they got the right answer. So there's ways around it. I try to keep tabs on them as much as possible. Again, that's why I keep my group sizes fairly small, so I can keep tabs on them. Also, when their videos are on, I can see that they're holding a pencil. I can see that their heads are down, right? If I see them like talking to someone else in the room, or if I see them their chair empty, that happens occasionally, that's a problem. Then I text their mom, hey, did you know your kid's not with me in the class? Can you go take care of them? I like to have all the parents' phone numbers on my phone right in front of me, and then I text reminders if they're late to class, or I let the parents know if the kids aren't participating, or whatever the parents need to know. Okay, here's the books that I use. These are all on Amazon. The Spectrum Math in each of the grade levels. And then it'll usually be accompanied by one of these other ones. I really like these Humble Math books, this series Humble Math, and they have all sorts of different math books. I like it because, first of all, it doesn't have a grade number on it. So it's really flexible, and nobody needs to feel bad. Nobody needs to be compared to a certain level, right? So a lot of times with my remedial teens, I just have them start in this book, and then they don't even know that they're doing 4th grade work, right? To them, it's just like, oh, fractions. Yeah, I don't know how to do this. How do you do it, right? And so we're just able to avoid that kind of awkwardness. And this book just gives you lots of practice from every angle. So if they need to be drilled on it, but then again, we don't go in order in the book, right? I'll give them for homework, let's say we have a page on the on the adding fractions page. You have a page on the multiplying fractions. You have a page on the dividing decimals page. You have a page on the percentage page. So I keep track of which pages they've done, and it's kind of like a page here, here, and here, and here one week, and then a page here, here, and here, and here the next week. So it's kind of random, but it's good. Kumon. Okay, another reason I like multiple workbooks instead of just one textbook is they're all a little bit different. Kumon is more difficult, and it's ridiculous that either of these books say grade 6. Maybe the beginning of the pre-algebra would work for grade 6, but the algebra definitely is not grade 6. And it will take the concept that's being presented in the spectrum books, and then it will tweak it and make it harder in the pre-algebra books. So and they're cute and they're fun. I don't know. I just feel inspired looking at those books. I think they're fun. And all of these workbooks have all of the answers in the back. That's another reason I like them. In the textbooks, they can only check half of their answers. So, and then I've had parents deal with this differently. Sometimes parents will rip out the answers and keep them separate so the kids can't check their own homework. The parents will check their homework. And by the way, I need to talk about that. I don't check homework. It's up to the parents to know if their kids have gotten the homework done and then check and see if they did well on the homework. When we meet back again the next week, I'll say, how did the homework go? Any questions? And it's on them to bring it up and say, hey, this problem on this page didn't make sense to me. Can we go over it? Or to tell me, I was only getting half of them right and I'm struggling with this. I don't know what to do. Like, I need that feedback. And if the parents can help check the work and let me know how the students are doing, I definitely take the information into account and then try to work with it. I don't just ignore my students. Okay. Okay, now here's my schedule of the classes I teach. All of these times are Mountain Standard Time. I'm in Utah. If you're in Arizona, that makes it complicated. I know. So my math classes that are scheduled now, I've got 2 in person in South Jordan. And then I have a 6th grade math on Tuesday mornings, an algebra on Tuesdays, and then a teen math basics, which is your remedial math. This is like 4th, 5th grade level. If you have a regular aged 4th, 5th grade child, they can sit in that, they can join it as well. That's fine. I just call it teen math basics so that they don't feel bad signing up for a class that's called 4th grade math, but if what I'm seeing with teens who struggle with math is that a lot of times they got stuck when they got to fractions, and their times tables usually aren't strong enough to be able to make equivalent fractions, reduce fractions, change mixed numbers and improper fractions, and then you have to start adding them and multiplying them. There's a lot of little skills there that all come together in a big picture in order to do the big skill. And if their little skills are weak, they just get lost and they have a really hard time moving forward. So that's why a gentle approach, teaching them the concepts of fractions while also requiring them to work on those flashcards and get those math facts stronger at home, is a really good balanced approach. So I've got those 3 online math classes and then the 2 in-person math classes. I don't have a 7th grade right now. I would like to add the 7th grade pre-algebra level. That is something that I might add here on a Tuesday or a Friday afternoon if my schedule opens up. And I just basically need requests. I go off of requests. Someone asked me, hey, I like that leadership class, but Thursdays don't work for me. Can you put in a duplicate? And they had a few friends. So I'm like, sure, yeah, let's go ahead and put in a duplicate and see if we can fill that up. So I have 2 duplicate classes. Middle school language arts, you've got 2 options there. Leadership, you have 2 options there. This is leadership and personal development, by the way. And I have a separate video explaining that class if you just go to my YouTube channel and look for that video. Then a psychology class, finance and entrepreneurship, and then a number of writing class options. My writing classes are different from my language arts because it's only writing, whereas language arts is writing plus literature. Some parents like to separate out the literature and require their own books, do their own reading as a family. So I just try to be flexible to accommodate that. Okay, here's how you can find me and get in touch with me. Please text me, call me if you want to talk, if you have any situation with your kids that you need to think out loud about. Check my email. I always respond the same day. And then this is just a reminder here, my website and what I do online, in person. Tutoring is mostly in the summertime. I don't have a lot of extra time for tutoring in the school year. and then my classes, of course, and the topics that I cover. So there's a little rundown of who I am and how my classes go, especially in math. Please look for my other videos on YouTube. I hope that I can help your family. I hope that if you feel inspired or drawn to this, that you will introduce yourself and sign your kids up. I would love to meet you. And we'll go from there. Thank you so much for watching.